Talk to me in Korean의 안효진입니다. 저는 오늘 지금 It was weird from me. It was 오늘 지금. Right? Like, I'm with
Janelle.
Janelle, and that's it.
Ask Hyojin.
Janelle,
Yes.
good to see you here.
Hey, good to see you. Hi.
I mean,
안녕하세요. Hi.
Janelle and we have been friends for a long time. It's our first time having her here in the Talk to Me in Korean office to be featured in this video.
네.
Right before she leaves Korea, which is sad.
오늘도 it's Ask Hyojin,
Yes.
but another topic that it's hard for me to answer. So I invited these two guys. Hyunwoo is from Gwangju, and Janelle, she's been working and living in Daejeon for how long?
For 3 years.
For 3 years. And I am sure Seokjin will put a map, a Korea map here, and mark where Daejeon and Gwangju is.
I see. Whenever
네.
you do that, Seokjin behind the camera, it's
네.
like, oh my god,
More work.
she's just giving me work. But anyway, so we're gonna talk about living outside of Seoul
네.
in Korea. A lot of people I know, I mean, they come to Korea with lots of expectations, lots of hopes for several things, but then when they realize that they're not going to be living in Seoul, some people might be a little bit disappointed that their town or city is a little far away from Seoul. So we're going to talk about some differences, some benefits or perks, and some drawbacks of not living in Seoul in Korea.
Okay, so I'm from Seoul. I've been living in Seoul for my whole life, so I don't really know much about that. But Gwangju is like 4 or 5 hours drive away from Seoul.
Precisely around 400 kilometers away from Seoul. Gwangju is, I think, the 5th or 6th largest city in Korea. And Daejeon is actually like about the same size. Yeah. Daejeon is about 200 kilometers away from Seoul. Yeah.
So it's like 15 minutes by KTX, right? An
Yeah,
hour?
it's really fast.
50 minutes. So if you live in like one of these big cities, I think the lifestyle is pretty much the same.
Much the same.
Yeah, I wouldn't say there's too many differences.
But I have an uncle living in Daejeon, so whenever I visit him, I notice that there are less cars, definitely.
Yeah,
In Daejeon?
there's not too much traffic, so I mean, it's not like it takes a long time to even get all the way across town.
Yeah, I think that's one good thing about not living in Seoul, because in Seoul traffic is just terrible.
네.
And, like the only time when I can see a lot of taxis waiting for me whenever I want to go somewhere like quickly by taxi is probably like around 6 a.m. in the morning, or like else I can't really do that. But whenever I go to Gwangju or Busan, even like these other cities that are smaller than Seoul, it's so convenient. People are like more friendly, even people that you don't know, they are more friendly, I guess, since there are less people. So that's a good thing. That's a good thing.
But how about as a non-Korean? Are people more curious about you?
Yeah, I'd say so. It was, I think, more so when I first got here, because I think the foreign population is growing all the time. But like even in Daejeon, just walking down the street, you'd see people kind of looking over there, or even they'd even just say, "Oh, 외국인이다." So then I go, "Oh, 한국 사람이다." Yeah, I don't mind.
That's a good tip.
Yeah.
You can do the same yourself.
Yeah.
What do they say when you say, "Oh, 한국 사람이다"?
Well, if I say it loud enough, I mean, they're just kind of like,
They
giggle or
laugh.
whatever. I wouldn't say that to like an older person, but someone like around my age or like a little kid. I'd just be like, oh. And then they kind of laugh, like, hee.
I see. In Seoul, people still do that, but I guess it's less frequent than in other cities. So, Daejeon is a fairly big city, and Gwangju is also a fairly big city. So, I wouldn't say like the amenities or the facilities that you can use are too different from Seoul. But living in Daejeon and you visit Seoul quite frequently.
Yeah.
Not like every weekend.
Yeah.
But
That'd be nice.
yeah. Every now and then. Are there particular reasons you come back to Seoul? Like,
Well, it kind of depends. Like, Daejeon doesn't have too many K-pop concerts, for one thing. It's pretty uncommon. So if I want to see a group I like, I have to come to Seoul to see them.
okay, so cultural activities.
Yeah.
Cultural events and
My friends, of course, because there are people who live
in Seoul.
here, yeah. And sometimes...
So friends and then?
Yeah. And shopping. Because, I mean, there's places to shop in Daejeon, but I mean, sometimes there's stores you can't get to. Like, we don't have Forever 21 or H&M, and I don't always fit into Korean brands. So then I have to come up here and then go to those international brands to get my clothes.
I see.
Yeah.
Shopping.
Shopping.
So those are the three things: cultural events, friends, and shopping. Any other things?
Food.
Food.
Yeah.
Is it more diverse here?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot more choices. It's harder to get sort of Western food sometimes. So if I feel like, oh, I'm really craving something in particular, then I'll try and coordinate a trip, friends and then eat and all that stuff.
So Janelle,
Yes.
were there any chances that you can move to Seoul?
Well, I have been here 3 years, and 2 of the years I was with EPIK.
Okay.
So at the end of the second year, I actually was looking for jobs in different cities, and I thought about moving to Seoul. Wasn't sure if I was quite ready yet, but I did start looking. And I stayed in Daejeon third year, and then at the end of this year, I thought, oh, now I'm really ready to move to Seoul. But then I decided to move home. So.
But what made you think that you're ready or not ready to move to Seoul? Like, what's the difference?
Well, just that in terms of population size, city size, Daejeon is a lot closer to where I was from. Like, my hometown is very small. It's only 8,000 people. And then where I went to university was roughly the same size as Daejeon. So I thought, okay, I can handle a place this big. Like, it's sort of what I'm used to. But Seoul, it's like, what, 10 million, 12 million? It's a
many
lot
people.
of people. So at first it's sort of sensory overload wherever you're going.
So that could be one disadvantage living in Seoul. Like, there are people all the time, everywhere. It's like really, really packed.
But I have a question for you then. You want to come back to Korea, like you told me
Yes.
some other time. And when you come back to Korea, or if you were to begin all your career life like once again, all over again, would you still choose Daejeon, or this time would you choose Seoul?
I would actually still choose Daejeon. I mean, the experience was just so positive, and all the friends I made there have become we just become really close. So,
I see.
Yeah.
Cool. And you brought some nice soboru bread from the famous Daejeon bakery.
Yes.
There are perks of living outside of Seoul, because there are some shops that have been going on for a really long time, and they are famous. So you can have access to those shops which don't exist in Korea. And also, how do you actually get to Seoul? Like, when you come up to Seoul, do you take the train, or do you walk? Do you fly?
Gosh, walk. That would take forever. Usually I will take the KTX. I mean, some people are like, oh, it's so expensive. It's only about 22,000.
As far as I know, from Daejeon to Seoul or vice versa, it's not too expensive. It's only like 2만 won, like you said.
And then if you take the Mugunghwa, the same it's less. But I take the bus if I go to K-pop concerts, because they're all south of the Han River.
Yeah, you could go to the Gosok Terminal.
Yeah, so it's much faster to do that, actually.
Yeah.
So depending on where you actually want to arrive within Seoul.
Yes.
I think 10 years ago or 15 years ago, the government actually started promoting this phrase, 일일 생활권, or maybe the KTX company. I'm not sure. I don't remember exactly, but the term 일일 생활권 came into existence. It means basically the entire country is possible to travel within one day. So you can visit any part of Korea, and come back to your home on that day. So do you sometimes do that? Can you come to Seoul?
Yeah.
Are you going back to Daejeon today?
Yeah, I kind of have to go back because selling my stuff.
I see.
But yeah, it's so easy. Compared to home, it would take me 6 hours just to drive from the bottom of my state to the top of my state. I mean, whereas the KTX from Seoul to Busan is just about 4 hours, roughly 3 hours.
2 hours and 40 minutes.
Okay,
exactly.
so I mean, you can go from one end of the country to the other, and that still kind of boggles my mind.
Oh, yeah.
That I can do that.
Yeah.
Speaking of Busan, a lot of people also choose to live in Busan, or they are located in Busan. Their schools are in Busan, and we know some people who are living in Busan or near Busan, and people say that Busan is pretty similar to Seoul, yet very different.
I wouldn't know the differences.
Well, it's by the sea.
Yeah.
And I think that makes a huge difference. So if you a lot of people are like, oh, I'm not living in Seoul. My school is not in Seoul. But to be honest, depending on the area, it could be better, and it could be, of course, it could be worse depending on your personality or depending on your priorities, but like cities like Daejeon or Busan or Gwangju, they are pretty big, so it's not much different, but they do have some more like positive aspects living in there.
I
How
think
about like
so.
Gwangju?
Gwangju, I don't know, like I've never lived in Gwangju for a long time, ever since I left after high school. So I was just a high schooler, just going from, between school and, house. So I wouldn't know very well about Gwangju, but as far as I know, there are less people. It means there are less traffic. Prices of things are a little lower than in Seoul. Things are less competitive. People are a little more laid back. Neighbors will actually talk to each other. They would actually, my parents, they still go hang out with people who live upstairs and downstairs. They even, like the other day, like 3 weeks ago, my cousin had a wedding. He got married, and on that wedding day, the entire population of the entire, what do you call it, the line in the apartment building, from the first floor to the 13th floor, everybody came to the wedding. Because they know each other. Not
That's
like everybody, but a lot of
I cannot
people.
imagine in Seoul.
Exactly. So it's really good. I can't really imagine my parents living here in Seoul in the same lifestyle that they are leading in Gwangju. So that's a good thing about it. So like Janelle was saying earlier, like no matter where you are sent to work or where you find a job or a school, you can come to Seoul very easily using public transportation. You just have to get up a little early and go to bed a little late. That's it, I guess. Yeah, and like Hyojin was saying, the nature can be a huge benefit of living by the sea or in the mountains.
And plus, if you want to practice your Korean, people living in Seoul, like foreigners living in Seoul, often complain that people in Seoul, like Korean people in Seoul, often respond them in English.
Yeah,
so
even if they speak in Korean.
Yeah. 안녕하세요, blah blah blah. They speak in Korean, but Korean people respond you in English. That happens a lot in Korea because in Seoul,
Yeah.
because I guess Seoul people are more like used to being with foreigners, and they are, I guess, more used to speaking English. I'm not sure, but like I have a friend who used to work at Gangwon-do, and he said there are many old people who cannot speak English, so he was forced to speak Korean, which helped him a lot improve his Korean. So that can be one benefit living in another city.
Yeah, it's the same thing for Koreans who go overseas to study English. If they go to LA, a lot of people come back without learning any English at all because you can just speak Korean
My
around.
uncle and my late aunt, they lived in LA for about a few decades. Like I visited them back in 2008 and their English was worse than mine. It happens.
The same thing can happen in Seoul if you only hang out in maybe Hongdae, maybe Itaewon.
With your foreigner friends.
Yeah. I mean, you can pretty much just speak English all the time. So if you want to improve your Korean skills by a lot, maybe living outside of Seoul can be an advantage. What other things would you say would you be able to share with our viewers about living outside of Seoul?
We talked about good things about living in Seoul, like you said, cultural events, or what else was that? Friends and shopping. And you said less popularity in Daejeon is good for you, so that could be a good thing.
Popularity or population?
Yeah, I'm not very popular in
Yeah, you're not very popular, Hyojin, either in Daejeon.
Oh.
Anyway. So, yeah, what other things?
Like you were saying, because of the less population, it's just I can enjoy things differently. Well, for one thing, like the subway line. There's only one subway line in Daejeon. So
similarly in Gwangju, there's only 2 or 3 or 2. Like recently, they built maybe the 3rd line. I'm not sure, but yeah.
So like when I'm out, when I need to go out, the buses or the subway, whatever, I don't feel so upset by the end of the trip. Like sometimes in Seoul, I'm just so frustrated because there's so many people. But I can just kind of go across town and it's okay.
Yeah, I see. In Seoul, one good thing about the metro, the subway system, is that wherever you want to go, there will be at least 1 or 2 subway stops near that place. But in places like Gwangju, even Busan or Daejeon, back 10 years ago when I asked my cousin in Busan how to get to a certain place, she said, oh, you go to this station by subway. And I thought that was the end of the conversation. So, okay, I'm gonna go. But then she was like, wait, you have to go to this station and take this bus and then go for 20 minutes to get to the place. So I thought that was a huge difference from Seoul. So if you're used to that, you might think, oh, it's more difficult to get around, but
I
buses
confess,
exist.
I'm like a what we call 서울 촌놈.
Yeah.
Could you explain what
Seoul 촌놈. 촌놈 is usually like a country person.
Yeah.
Like you've never been to Seoul, you've never experienced all these Seoul
It's
like
kind of like a
life.
disrespectful,
Yeah, of course.
yeah, term. And 서울 촌놈 is
It's like an opposite term.
yeah.
Looking down upon Seoul people
네.
who've only experienced things that are in Seoul and they don't know the outside world.
Yeah,
So that's
I'm
Seoul
like
촌놈.
that. So it wasn't until like high school or something I realized that not every city has subway. I was pretty shocked. So like having one or two lines, subway lines. Is
Can't imagine
yeah.
that,
Like for foreigners, I guess it's a little bit of downside because I know a lot of 외국인s are kind of afraid of taking buses because it's a
Ah.
little more difficult to get around.
Yeah, I think more and more buses and bus stops have English these days in Seoul. So I guess I hope that expands to other cities as well. So yeah, like you said, you didn't teach in a very downtown area, right?
No, when I started with EPIK, usually you get put into a public school, like elementary, middle, high school. But I got put into an English camp.
Yeah.
And it was actually set right outside of Daejeon City, actually technically in Gwangju, which is the next city over. So it was on, like, literally on the side of a mountain. And when they showed everyone, okay, this is your school placement, and I didn't see my school on the map, I basically started crying, which my friends still make fun of me for. But luckily what happened is my home was in Daejeon City, and then the Metropolitan Office of Education, they bussed us out.
Every day?
Every day. So like
Oh.
30 minutes each way.
I see. That's convenient, I
Yeah.
guess. That's cool.
Are there any other things that you can think of, like good things about living outside of Seoul?
At least in my area, it's slightly more nature than what you'd see in Seoul. Like pretty much, if you have a clear view, you can see mountains surrounding all of
yeah.
Daejeon, because Daejeon's pretty much surrounded by mountains. So like if I want to go hiking, I mean, I can do that whenever. Or if I want
Yeah.
to walk by the river,
Yeah.
you know, without any traffic, like I can do that too.
That's right. Even though Korea is fairly small country compared to other bigger countries, the air quality can change like quite a bit significantly if you go to other cities like Daejeon or I mean I get to travel a little bit to other cities, and then whenever I go to a smaller town, like I can see so far away that I can see like 4 or even 10 different layers of mountains, you know, like for kilometers, tens of kilometers. But in Seoul, I can't even see like 10 kilometers away, you know. So that's a huge thing. I guess you can be more healthy. Yeah.
Is it cheaper in
Yeah, of course.
Gwangju and in Daejeon?
Not everything
Not
by
everything.
far, but you know, some things.
Yeah, I'd say, well, I mean, rent,
Rent
I'm
is
sure, has got to be
definitely
cheaper.
Ah, yes.
Yeah.
Rent has like rent in Seoul and rent in other cities can be very different. Also, I think food is also cheaper. Like restaurants
Yeah.
are cheaper.
Yeah, except for maybe non-Asian food, I should say. I mean, that in general is kind of high priced everywhere.
All right, so I guess we talked about most of the things that we wanted to talk about in this video. So Hyojin, can you wrap it up for us? Summarize everything nicely so that everybody can just...
I think Seokjin will put
No.
things here.
No extra work for Seokjin. You will do the job.
Okay, so good things about living in Seoul
Seoul?
is that
Seoul
there
is like her entire world. She only knows.
no,
She's
that's
서울
not
촌놈.
true.
Yeah.
That is not true. I love Busan. I love other cities.
Okay.
I love Daejeon. Anyways, like good things about living in Seoul is that there are many things that you can enjoy. More cultural events are happening in Seoul, and more places to shop.
Yeah.
More brands, shoe brands, clothing brands,
Just
and
more people, more business. You know,
네.
that's it.
and more friends, more 외국인s or more Korean friends who want to meet
Yeah.
외국인.
And
I
of
don't
course,
know.
more problems too in Seoul.
That's true. Like problematic people like Hyunwoo.
But other perks of living outside of Seoul, better
is
nature.
nature.
Prices are a little
Cheaper.
lower, and you can, I don't know, make more Korean friends speaking Korean.
And less people, which is a huge good thing,
Yeah.
advantage living outside of Seoul, because it can be quite stressful living in Seoul because there are too many people, too many cars. So, well, we are not saying which one's better. It's up to your experience. It's up to your preference. So leave us a comment which one you would prefer, and if you have an experience living outside of Seoul, other parts of Korea, please leave us a comment too.
Yes, so that people who can read the comments can see or read about your experiences. So
네.
please share your experiences and stories with us, and we'll be back next time.
자넬 고마워요.
재현이.
안녕.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Really quickly. It's not a complicated system. It's actually very easy and scientific. And after learning the basic Hangul, you can actually recognize